Oh.
If you like the Yankees.
Is it that time already?
Good morning, everybody. Happy winter solstice. And are we off mute for the Zoom folks?
We are off.
Okay. Good morning, Sally, Dan, and Carrie. Everybody here. And welcome our guest, Elena, who's busy crafting something over there.
Yes.
And this morning, we're going to hear two more classification talk, which we found.
I heard there were Wi-Fi issues at the church.
Yep. Yeah, I gave them a recommendation yesterday of plugging us into the hard wire, but I don't think they found it. Yeah. It's good to see you though, Dan.
Hey Sally, good to see you too. Sorry I missed you at the senior luncheon.
Yeah, I know.
I went specifically to see you, but how are you
you're so
feeling?
sweet. Well, you wouldn't have wanted to see me because I'm in COVIDville, but I get my freedom for Christmas Eve.
That's really good. Are you feeling
Tight
okay?
call. What?
Are you feeling good?
Yeah, it's just been a bad head cold. And, we're also used to being healthy, that you get something like a head cold. I've been very cranky. It's hard to be a good sport when you haven't been sick in like 4 years.
All this morning.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
We're back.
They've been talking to each other. Ready? Good morning.
Just tell her we lost internet.
Oh, we lost the internet, so we're back now. Can you all hear us or hear me? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the inspiration this morning, there were too many choices for me, but this one is coming from the Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. And this is believing. Believing is all a child does for a living. Picasso once said, artists are those of us who still see with the eyes of children. Somehow, as we journey into the world, more and more gets in the way. And we stop questioning things in order to move deeper into them and start questioning as a way to challenge things that we fear are false. As a child, I used to talk to things, birds that flew overhead, trees that swayed slowly in the night, even stones drying in the sun. For years, though, I stopped doing this freely because of what others might think, and then I stopped altogether. Now I learned that Native Americans do this all the time, that many original peoples believe with their childlike eyes right into the center of things. Now almost 50, not me, I am humbled to recover the wisdom that believing is not a conclusion, but a way into the vitality that waits in everything. And I liked this for a lot of reasons, because I really like to bring out the child in myself as often as possible. And also because I wanted to use this as an opportunity to thank Armand for believing in doing the toy drive and making it happen, which was something we haven't ever done before. And it was great fun. And I want to thank the other Rotary members who were there. I do not want to forget anybody. Sherry was there. Jen was there. Dave was there. Who else Howard was there, because Howard was there. Oh, Jen, yes, I'm so sorry. Anyway, always risk forgetting somebody, and I'm sorry. It was such a great event, and it was so much fun to watch the children and our Rotary members come out. Some a little bit more than others, Sherry and Matthew. And also to watch the kids. Sherry had this great idea of purchasing some toys and having them in a bag near the barrels. And so when families came out, particularly those who didn't have a toy, she would ask the parents and then invite the children to come over to the bag and pick up a toy and put it in the barrel for another child, which was
That's a wonderful idea.
so lovely and so cool. And then I want to particularly recognize Jen, because you also did something that I haven't done in all the years I've been doing the toy drive. You were asking really amazing questions. And I thought, dang, that's so cool, because I just kind of go, okay. You told me to do that. And I thought you asked such good questions about what does this mean? And what is this about? And where does this come from? And where is this going? And because of your question, we got some pretty awesome answers. And we got a plan for prior to next year that I think is going to really excite all of the members. So I want to thank you for believing in this project and making it happen. And you do that a lot. And I want to give you lots of credit for that. And I want to thank you for being comfortable enough to ask those questions that were really good and inspiring me to do that more too. So thank you.
Go back on again for the Rotary Minute. 20 reasons why you should become a member of the Rotary Club. And we have a video, which hopefully this time we'll play. Hopefully it'll be playing without commercial because 2 minutes long.
Fast traders.
And trying.
You sure that wasn't part of
No.
it?
So except for that last part, keep it in mind, looking forward into the next year. And remember, share some of these thoughts with prospective members. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll send a link out to that in case you wanna look at it at a more leisurely. So, I wondered, Armand, now that you're standing up, did you want to give a brief update on what happened overall with the toy drive?
Okay,
If you're able, or?
I am, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, they picked up the barrels yesterday. From what I gathered, it turned out to be successful. At first, it was very slow, but it went well. And Saturday, thanks to the club helping out, we gathered a barrel, 2.5 barrels of toys at Walmart. So it turned out to be a pretty good year. Also, the opportunity, we met a lady named Sherry who is with the Salvation Army. She's been with them for 30 years doing helping with the toy distribution. And she gave told us how they distribute them, how they set up the castle at the new mall, and that's where all the toys go and get distributed from there. It was very interesting, the whole thing. And hopefully we can get her to come talk to us this fall, before next year. I think that could cover one thing, support Sherry and Leslie. They're just amazing. The energy they brought to Walmart on Saturday was just amazing.
That was the childlike quality.
I know.
Can I just say something about the barrels? I don't know if anybody had I don't know if anybody had a business that didn't seem like it was collecting many toys. But I had Union Bank, I have had them for the last couple of years, and I go in and they all kind of go, oh, we don't have anything. This year, I think I got 1.5 barrels from them. And actually I picked up on Tuesday, and they called me afterwards and said, somebody just loaded the barrel right after you left. So it does get better. And so we can just kind of keep feeding these.
Embarrassment.
What's that?
Embarrassment works.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. That sounds like it was a successful. I'd say, we did our annual Oxford Senior Drive through the newspaper, and I imagine some of you may have contributed to it anyway. It was successful again this year. We had plenty of socks for all the nursing homes around here, and then up also in Franklin County and St. Albans area, and a few extras that'll make their way to like the pots or the food shelf or something like that. So thank you to everyone who helped with that. Quick update on the Ghana water project. We collected between the club's donation and individual donations. We got $1,550 that we pledged to that project, and it's looking very good to get full funding with the Rotary International grant. I think it'll all get finalized in March. So great. Another good thing done. And then just letting you know that maybe mentioned before that on January 11th, we'll be joined by the South Burlington Rotary Club. The speaker is still being finalized, but I'm sure it's going to be great. And it'll be fun to get together as a larger group with our neighboring club.
You're gonna be here or there?
Here. And then,
Home field advantage.
Yeah.
and then we can connect later. I just want to double check on January 18th. The plan is to have student speech makers here.
I don't know how many, have you heard anything? No, I don't know.
Let's all get a hold of those schools.
Well, the schools are closed
Yes,
right
right.
now. or-
The administration is.
Yeah.
Are we looking for speech? Yeah. Okay, I can reach out again. My understanding is there were
Please do.
a couple kids that see the
When
kids
is
that-
school officially closed?
Right.
Friday.
They go to
Friday.
All right, so we can call today, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be terrific. And then just so that we'll
Nobody,
plan.
I saw my little blurb in the paper,
Uh-huh.
but nobody has contacted me.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like Greg thinks that at least a couple students from CBU.
Yeah, it could be that they're associated with other towns,
Right.
so that they might be going to
Oh, right.
Melbourne
Yeah.
or the other club.
That's Wednesday.
That there was a question about that.
Yeah,
came
but I
through.
experienced the same thing when I contacted Rice.
Mhm.
Well, I reached out to you that
Yeah.
they were a little confused about where to go. So we gave them some information about the presidents at the other clubs, how to contact them. There seemed to be some interest, but it's really dependent on the students, I think. I mean, the
Mhm.
faculties, they're posting things, they're making they're encouraging the students, but we'll see.
Okay, all right, well, if folks can try to confirm, whether we should continue to hold that date, that would be helpful. We'll try to come up with
When
a
does,
plan.
well, let me ask Greg, when does school start again? January what? The second.
Oh, so there's time.
The shortest
So we
holiday
have
if
some-
possible.
Yeah, I will, you'll make your
They
phone
don't do
calls.
anything.
Can everybody get back to me and find out if there's some interest?
Yeah.
And is it-
possible? We
Is
can't-
it true that if they go to CVU, but they live in Shelburne, that they can't come through us?
Right, because Shelburne has their own
Yeah.
club and their own contest.
Okay,
But one of the other questions that was raised to me is, are those clubs sponsoring? We want to, my answer was, we do.
Shelburne Club does
And
it,
we know
South
South Burlington,
is.
but those were the only two I know, because I went to the websites on the others and it didn't say anything about the speech contest. We didn't have anything about it on our website,
Mhm.
but South Burlington did. So I think it's just hard for these students to figure out where to go. And if we're not successful this year, we'll come up with a better plan for next year, but.
Well, oftentimes you have one candidate.
Yeah,
and that
there you
becomes the
go.
winner.
Yeah.
Shelburne, Charlotte,
Money.
Club did have one last year and they are doing it again.
Yeah.
Oh, they did.
Yes, I
Okay.
collaborate with the woman who,
Oh, okay, great.
All right, well, try to get updates, get them to Barb, and then we'll check in again on this on the
On the
fourth.
fourth, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Now I am excited to turn this over to Dan Clark, who would like Andy Michael to deliver his.
That was unfairly.
Thank you for having me. I gave this a title. So the title, and it won't take me very long. So, yeah, we'll catch you in next week.
yeah, maybe.
So actually I do have some notes, mostly to stay on task, and secondly, CRS, right? So here we go. Couple of factoids, favorite color, blue. Favorite band, Grateful Dead. Noting that we've lost a few of the supporting cast with Phil Sweat and Bob Drake and the ultimate deadhead Rick Wolfish, having retired from the club. So it's getting tougher for playing in the band. Favorite books, I tried to come up with some favorite books. It's virtually impossible, so I kind of dial that back to like what maybe the most impressionable or memorable books, things that sometimes you read and you go back to. And I kind of came up with two. One is All Quiet on the Western Front, and the other is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So those are kind of things that, when I'm in a quiet moment, think about. Favorite movie, again, hard to do, so I went with most impressionable. What do I think about, in weird times? And I'm going with Planet of the Apes. This works on so many levels. I think about Planet of the Apes. Favorite dinner. I'm blessed with a wife that's an amazing cook, so I had to redefine this as what do I always make for myself when Ashley's not home? What's the go-to? And it's pretty standard. So it's salmon, broccoli, and mashed potatoes out of the pouch. That's his favorite thing.
Salmon out of the pouch?
No. The salmon is cooked. Highest mountain ever free soloed. That's 14,115 feet, Pikes Peak in Colorado. And by free solo, I mean you just walk up a path. So there was no technical climbing involved. But when you get to the top, yeah, it's a little dizzying. Longest solo trip flying an airplane was from Burlington to Bangor, Maine to Manchester and back to Burlington. Those are some of the factoids. Early life, I sort of broke it down, and sometimes things, you interweave stuff. So I'm kind of going with early life / education. Born in Burlington, fourth generation Vermonter on my mom's side. September 8, 1957 was the magic date. My dad was an attorney, then became a state court judge, and then retired from that and became an attorney again, and we'll loop back to that.
My mom raised me as the oldest, and I have 3 younger brothers. So she raised 4 boys. She also worked many years in my dad's law office. She started and ran a kindergarten out of our house, which is across the road. Susan, you may know that's where I grew up, the top of the hill there. And also worked at Digital Equipment Corp back in the day. So we lived in South Burlington until I was about 5. The only real memories I have are that there was an ice cream truck that came around the neighborhood, and that was really exciting. You know, the Pavlovian response as the bell rings and the kids run out with their quarters or whatever we were doing. Then we moved to Huntington, out into the suburbs. And my memories there are that I commuted to kindergarten in South Burlington. My dad was going to work, so I'd drive in with him at whatever hour and get dropped off at kindergarten, and my mom must have picked me up. First grade in Huntington, well, Huntington was a 2-room schoolhouse. As I remember it, 1st through 5th grade were in rows. So that was in one room, and the 6th through 8 were in the other room over there, the big guys. We had a chimney fire once at 2 in the morning. So I remember kind of going outside, and it was kind of in the winter because it was a chimney fire. So we had our PJs on and everything was fine. But that was exciting. So we moved to Williston when I was partway through 1st grade to Van Sicklen Road, which was then a dirt road. And if you saw 10 cars a day, that was exciting. Now it's 10 cars a minute. Things change, right? Memories are just playing outside with my brothers. Most of our friends lived, you know, the houses are spread out, you know, half mile away. So we'd walk around, and we'd go out into the fields, and we'd be gone for hours climbing up muddy brooks. And we'd be going up past your house. There were houses back then. So we'd go up and down, and my parents had a giant bell. I think it was a Liberty Bell, but it was probably like this big by this big. It was mounted, and when it was time to come home, my mother would ring it. You could hear that bell for miles. So we'd just ping it on home. I did ride my bike to Williston Central School a couple of times. The school was obviously significantly smaller. It's hard to know, a quarter, a fifth. And we had to go through the single blinking light at the Blair Farm Taft's Corners. If I do that now, and I live across the road from where I grew up, I'm going through 6 traffic lights. Just different. Went to CVU, graduated halfway through senior year. Not 100% sure why. It was a good school, had fun, but then I went and lived in Stowe for moved there in January, lived with a friend, did a lot of ski training and played in a lot of backgammon tournaments. I got into Williams College, in my opinion, because the ski coach was brand new and appeared to have some influence in the admissions office because they weren't taking my GPA from CVU. Memories of college. Those of you who were here last year, I think I was shared Howard Novak's social plan in college. But on top of that, I played a lot of bridge. A lot. So, you know, with the after dinner, when it was sort of time to go to the library, and when I did that, I usually just fell asleep. And Ashley can verify that because I'd be sleeping in the carols. But if so, it was mostly the word went around, anybody for a quick rubber. So everybody's hand went down, you know, 7:30 became 8:30, became 9:30, became, okay, it's time to go to bed. At any rate, you know, I also ended up, I guess even before that, I played a lot of duplicate bridge with my grandmother. And I was sort of the novelty because the duplicate bridge tournament was, no offense to any of us, because I'm with you guys, but it would be like Elena coming in here and like everybody's really old. So I was like 17 and you know, and everybody's smoking back in the day. So I would come home from, you know, playing duplicate bridge with my grandmother, clothes reeked, my eyes were just like red and puffed out, but it was a lot of fun, and I still miss those days. Now I just play bridge on my phone too much sometimes. So fall of freshman year, I was in the local downtown movie theater, and probably went in with some friends, and this super cute blonde girl comes up, or she's walking near me, and I kind of get out of the way so she can go by. She stops and she starts talking to me. Me? What? At any rate, I don't remember her pickup line, but it worked. And again, more to come on that. So besides playing a lot of bridge, having a super cute girlfriend, most of my college identity is really revolved around being on the ski team. So it's a D3 school, but the two sports that are D1 are squash and skiing. So we were skiing D1. Side note, my dad went to Williams and he had been captain of the squash team. I later became captain of the ski team. So the two sports, just kind of a little family trivia there. So competed in 4 NCAA championships, got named to the All East team a couple of years, and our best team result was 10th at the NCAAs. And a Taylor Swift theme, I'm moving eras here. Post-college, family and work. So after college, I was a teacher at a boys boarding school in Garrison, New York, which is directly across the river from West Point Academy. So it'll be on the east side of the Hudson, about 50 miles north of the city. I taught 5th grade math, and I taught 5th to 8th grade science, and some of it was also a one room thing, like all the kids essentially took this science thing at the same time, but my 5th grade math class was separate. Memories there was my 3-week work schedule. The first week I got a half a day off. Second week I got a day off, and the third week I got a weekend off. So every weekend I got off as soon as I jumped in my car, drove down to Middletown, Delaware, where my super cute girlfriend was teaching at St. Andrew's Academy. So it's at St. Andrew's School in Middletown, Delaware. So a lot of road trips to Delaware and back. The only other thing I can kind of remember is the Olympics were that year in Lake Placid, and the torch, when they run the torch from wherever they do, Athens to the new site, I don't know. It came near the school, so we got up at 5 o'clock, put all the kids on a thing, put up signs that said, flame on, and we watched the Olympic torch go by. So now what are we up to? 1980, enrolled in law school in Vermont Law. 81, married. Ashley and I got married, and I married way up. And if you don't believe me, just ask my mother-in-law. I mean, you guys know Ashley, so she's smarter, she's way nicer, she's more optimistic. And yeah, she's just a great gardener, and we've had a wonderful life together. Our next wedding anniversary will be our 43rd. We moved to Charlotte in 1983, bought our first house. Memories are that our first mortgage was 13.5% interest. So I don't know what kids today are whining about. 7, 8, whatever. 13.5. That was the way it went. And our house mostly burned down on Christmas Eve, 1983. We came back, it was a smoldering fire. So ultimately the structure was there, but the fire department came on Christmas Eve, 4 different alarms, really cold, knocked out all the windows and hosed the fire out, but everything had to be replaced, and we didn't have kids. We lost a couple of fish, and so that's going to happen. We got lucky. Bought some land from our parents and moved to back to Williston in 1988, built our house, and that's where we live. We have 2 awesome boys. The older lives in Warren, and he and his wife just had their first child in February of this year. Our younger son lives with his wife on 7th Avenue in Manhattan. We have the country mouse and the city mouse, raised by the same parents, 2 great kids, just different. And our younger son and his wife had their first baby in August. So we went from 0 to 2 in like 4 months. Civic and other life engagements, probably too many boards of directors to, go into. I was a member of the South Burlington Kiwanis Club in the 80s. My dad had been in the South Burlington Kiwanis Club probably for 2 decades before that. South Burlington Club opened a club in Burlington. So I shifted over to the Burlington Club, and I was president for a year. I'll say it was the 1980s, but that's the CRS category. At some point, my dad joined this club and I followed him again and joined here, I'll say 1997. I was president, the banner isn't here, I'm gonna say 2012 and 2013. 5 years on, I think 5 years on the Williston School Board, 3 years or so on the Williston Select Board. Other Williston activities, if there was a sport, because I had my two boys, I basically coached it. Little League coach, youth soccer coach. I ski coached at Sugarbush, the GMBS weekend program, probably for 20 years, even long after my kids were out of the program. I've gone back and been a Little League umpire for a couple of years, and I'm gonna try to remember to do that again. Williston Central School mentor for 9 or 10 years, had 3 different boys that we had a lot of fun. We'd go to the gym and shoot some hoops, we'd play games, we'd bake cookies, we'd do whatever they wanted to do. Just had an interview yesterday to become a guardian ad litem in the Vermont court system. And the guardians are basically appointed by the court to look after the best interests of children that are in generally care of need and supervision. Bad family stuff. So
Yeah.
more to come on that. I taught 1 law course per semester for 5 or 6 years at Champlain College, both business law and family law. And we'll whip through the work career. During summers and after graduation from law school, I worked in my dad's law office. He had a small practice in Burlington. We did lots of family law and real estate with a little bit of everything else, business formation, wills in the States, some criminal law. Private practice highlights include, I think I argued 5 or 6 cases in the Vermont Supreme Court. Won most of them, a couple that come to mind. Had a UVM student who might have had some drugs in a pouch. He got in a rollover accident and the pouch was found outside the car when the police came. So the police kind of looked in there and they found some mushrooms. Not the kind that you generally buy at Hannaford, but the other kind of mushrooms. Long story short, we filed a motion to suppress the evidence. The trial court let it in. He was convicted, appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Vermont Supreme Court applied the Vermont Constitution because the federal Constitution would have let the evidence in. They suppressed it, and we can look at it that I got a college kid who had some drugs in his car out, or we can look at it that hopefully he learned a lesson and it changed his life because it was an expensive and stressful experience. I had a client, the father whose ex-wife took a kid and went to Rhode Island and he wasn't allowed to see his kid. So we had to file the motion with the court under the Child Custody Kidnapping Act. And we got a court order and hopefully restored his visitation. I never know how some of these things turn out in the end. I had a 3-way divorce one time. I'm representing a father. And we're going along in the divorce, and suddenly his wife says, "Yeah, dude, you're not the father of the baby that you've been raising for 5 years." And she was right. So in a unique situation, it's A and B. We'll see the biological father now came into this divorce. So just stuff you can't make up, but that happens in real life. One of my favorite client quotes is in another custody case or something, and the father turned to me and said, "I don't want to flea bargain with the kids." So that was all good. So my dad retired in '83. I'm wrapping up, Dan. It wasn't the same. I putzed around with a partner or two for a couple of years, and our kids were getting older and doing a whole lot of things. So private practice was great. There are highs and lows. The lows are when you go on vacation, you don't make any money. So I moved over in 1997, became a state manager for a title insurance company, the regional title insurance company. Basically, I was a problem solver. It was a chance to only do real estate. So I worked with 125 law offices around the state, and we'd solve title problems so that people could buy houses, sell houses, get mortgages, involved in real estate claims and stuff. So I was underwriting that and running the office. On top of that, I did a ton of continuing legal education programs for attorneys every year. A lot of them with Michael Kennedy. Sean Kennedy's wonderful son. The guy's such an awesome asset to the Vermont bar. We worked together with Mike a lot. I chaired the real property section of the BBA for a number of years, and in that role, did a lot of testifying in the legislature. Bills came up affecting real property. Kind of get a call and get on and try to explain it to the legislature. Retired a year ago. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And now Dan.
line one? Yes. It's an installments.
First hero.
I'm gonna move right along because I have a short PowerPoint to show you after this. So a little different. I'm gonna talk about my classification as much as about me. So my classification is manufacturing, but also I worked in prisons for a while. And so the PowerPoint is a little bit about one of the prison programs we started, which I presented to many Rotaries and Kiwanis, etc. So anyway, I grew up in Syracuse, one of 8 kids there. Went to Catholic schools all the way through 12th grade. I was very fortunate. We didn't have a lot of money, probably like a lot of you, but didn't really recognize that. And, grew up in a family with high expectations. And that means a lot. So I went to school in Buffalo where I met Chris, luckily. And she's been really, the major bright spot in my life. We've moved around a lot. And I've traveled a ton, and to have a spouse like that is just really life-changing. So we have 5 kids, 2 of which are adopted, born in Korea. And we've been married 42 years, married in 1981, May 30th.
Yeah.
And so in Buffalo, I became a resident assistant RA, to help pay the bills. And I worked in the international dorm. So my first roommate in college was a Palestinian, and we had other suite mates from all areas of the world. And it really was kind of an awakening because I just grew up, I'll say sheltered, and didn't really know much. But during that time was the Iranian Revolution. So all the Iranian kids who were all from wealthy families and well-connected, all of a sudden were afraid for their life and for the lives of their families. And then also there was a big devaluation in some currencies, including the Brazilian. So those kids had to go home. All of a sudden they were broke. So it was really kind of eye-opening. But it was a start for me because I traveled all over the world, fortunately in my work. So I got to realize really how lucky we are to be in the United States, to have the rule of law, to have a stable economy and a safe nation. So I graduated in 81. That was a pretty bad time in the economy. So I had 2 job offers. One was a bank teller and the other was door-to-door insurance salesperson. So went to graduate school to RPI, studied math. And later on, I found that the guy told me, the department chair, we hired you because you're the only math person that English was your first language. So at that time, again, this is kind of like STEM. All the undergraduates were kids from Long Island, good families, smart kids. All the graduate students from international. So I sat in several classes with 100% international kids in me. And so really was, again, you start to open your eyes and realize, man, we're missing something here. I also realized I'm not really a math person. I start hanging around with real math people. So I got into applied math or computers. And my first job was United Technologies in Hartford, Connecticut. Huge plant there. So that was 81 or 82, and that's when Reagan had been elected. So, defense industry started kicking up. There were a lot of jobs there. And if you remember, that's when he was shot by John Hinckley. So Al Haig had been the CEO of United Technologies, you might remember. I'm in charge. So I thought about the times at work that we gathered, and that was one. And we lived in Connecticut at that time, and New York was the Challenger disaster in '86, so probably wherever you are, you remember where you were for that. We lived in New York at that point. In '95 was the Oklahoma City bombing, and also the OJ trial. So we lived in Iowa for the bombing, but we were in Tennessee during the OJ trial. And then 9/11, in 2001. So, those are kind of times we all remember where we were, and I'm sure there's others, but anyway, so back to Connecticut. At that time, US manufacturing was really getting beat all over the world. And we were starting to try to figure out, what are these Japanese people doing? And one of the things that a quote that was presented to us was, every defect is a treasure. And man, we just laughed and laughed. We're so rich. We're surrounded by defects, because making jet engines, is very precise. You make a mistake, you don't heat treat it right or machine it correctly, and it costs you a lot of money. We just thought that was so funny. But at that time, US manufacturing was really getting decimated. And still to this day, you look through all the Rust Belt parts of Ohio and everything, those towns and communities have been really devastated. And you could almost say that's led to a lot of drug and other despair type issues. And if you bought cars back at that time, you know what I'm talking about. Like GM cars in the '80s were not something that, there's not a lot of them on the road today, right? So when I worked with my team, a lot of times we talk about, if you were around and putting money down on a company in the '50s and '60s, a car company, would you put your money on one that's at a rocky island out in the Pacific, doesn't have a lot of raw materials, has to import them all, speaks a language nobody else in the world speaks, has a currency nobody accepts? Or would you put your money on a company that's right in the smack in the middle of the world's largest market? Everybody speaks their language, everybody accepts their currency, they got iron, coal, everything you need. Yeah, GM had 60% market share back then. Now it's down, I think, 17. So there was a lot of reckoning, hard reckoning in the world of manufacturing since then. So, one of the things, so we talk about how does Toyota do it, and maybe you've heard about the Toyota way, right? So one of the things we talked about was, we made podiums when I was in a prison factory, and I'd ask the guys, how long does it take to make this podium? They say, 12 weeks, 16 if we're really busy. And I'd say, no, how long does it take to make this podium? Well, 12 weeks. If it was quicker than that, we'd sound, shorter lead time. But how long does it take to make this podium? And then they'd start to say, oh, you mean to cut it out and to assemble it and to finish it? And they'd add it up, 45 minutes. So then you start to think about, and this is what happened through all of manufacturing in the United States, all over the world, what's the difference between 45 minutes and 12 weeks? Well, it's all waiting, it's waste, it's rework, it's all these things. So in manufacturing, again, my classification, there's been a bit of a renaissance as people have started to realize that, everything that we have, everything that we do can be improved, continuous improvement. And that's been a big change and has helped quite a bit here recently. Okay, so moved from Connecticut to Buffalo, worked at Fisher-Price Toys. Fittingly, I was bought by Mattel and they moved all their manufacturing overseas. So I moved out to Iowa and worked in the tire business and the food and feed ingredient business. So Iowa, between agriculture and manufacturing, there's a lot of international involvement there. A lot of visitors, always. One of them was Nikita Khrushchev. So you might remember, well, I don't remember, I wasn't alive, but slammed his shoe down, we will bury you, right? So the United Nations, right? But he came to Iowa to see how they grew corn and how it gets so tall and everything like that. So funny thing is, years later, when I was in the tire business, I visited the factory where Nikita Khrushchev worked in quality in Ukraine. So anyway, like I said, I've been all over the place. I've lived in Brazil and China for periods. and to travel all over the world. So when I got back from Brazil, I was promptly fired and replaced by a Brazilian. So that was very difficult. But it happened that right after that, my mom came down with cancer. She didn't want to have any treatment. So I was able to commute. I lived in Iowa. She lived in Syracuse. So traveled back and forth and stayed with her as she went through hospice. So that was a big, I hate to say bright spot, but to be able to do that, I felt very lucky. And then recently, I've also helped my sister through her hospice, and she passed away here recently. So when I got back, I'd been on a board of directors for Iowa Prison Industries, and the director retired, so I ended up taking that role. So correctional industries is a very, to me, interesting topic. It's one that everybody on the political spectrum hates. If you're left wing, you believe that we're exploiting people, not paying them, going wages. And if you're on the right, you believe, wow, these people are working, at $1 an hour, you're unfair competition to corporations. So always, it was a bit of a lightning rod, but I wanted to talk a little bit about a program that we started, if you wouldn't mind firing that. It's called Homes for Iowa. So this was a program to build affordable housing. Yep. And if you put that in presentation mode, that'll be easier to see. Bingo. So you can just scroll through, spend, a couple seconds on each slide. So we built those at one of the prisons in central Iowa, and there was 3 goals of that program: train men who are incarcerated in the trades, right, to be apprentice electricians and drywallers and roofers, connect them with employers, so help employers. There's a big shortage of people, of course, in the trades, and then produce, affordable housing. So we based it off of South Dakota's plan, so I don't have a picture of ours in Iowa, but as you can see, there's just lots of houses built outside. If you walk through it, it feels like you're in a housing development. The governor asked us to make sure it was a public-private partnership. So as corrections, we were of course part of the public, but we formed a board of 501c3 that was privately held and was comprised of people in the housing business, contractors, home builders, affordable housing advocates, and things like that. And that turned out to be a great move. So these homes are stick built, right? They're not, they're modular homes, but which means factory built, but they're not manufactured homes, which are, quote, trailers. So a big difference. So these are homes that you would build on site, except that we move them. And they're sold at around $90,000 delivered to somebody's home or to somebody's foundation. Okay, next one. A few pictures just of them. So we moved these homes all over the state. So that home is 50 feet long, 24 feet wide, and about, I think, 16.5 feet tall. That's a very expensive trailer. It can lower down to 6 inches or up to 48 inches. So moving these is non-trivial, but it did get figured out. There you can see how it slid onto somebody's foundation or mostly basement. Most of them end up on basements. And, Iowa's got 99 counties, and I think maybe half of them have one or more of these homes. So we ended up delivering them mostly to rural areas where contractors or builders are not going to go out and build one home in a rural area, right? It just does not pay. They'd have to bring all their contractors from 2 hours away every day. So a lot of these towns haven't seen a new home since the 70s or even earlier. So they can be sold to developers or habitat or all kinds of different entities. Maybe you can see one in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. You might, your son lives there, Leslie. So yeah, so we've got some in Mount Pleasant. Another one. So the homes are built complete. Everything's in there except the flooring and the appliances. So the heater, or sorry, the furnace, the water heater, everything else. It's all set to go. Another one in the middle of nowhere. So by the time you put a garage on, and especially if you're on a basement where you can put another 2 or 3 bedrooms and a bath, you can have a pretty big house for not a lot of money. I have the economics maybe on the next slide. And keep going. Oops, that didn't quite come out right, but typically when everything is loaded in, that house would be sold for between 170 and 225. So house itself is 95,000, but you know, just to put a basement and any kind of flat work in anymore, very expensive. A garage, you got to buy a lot in some cases. Some cases they were, you know, given for free by a city. And then
we can buy lots for that here.
Yeah. But there's a lot of rural towns where a house burned down in 1986 and nothing's ever been there since. So, at least that's the situation in Iowa. Okay, next slide. I think that's it. Well, a big part of it is the training. So, the men that are in the program, are trained, as apprentices in the various trades. They get certification by NCCER, which is recognized by construction and contract companies all over the United States. And we did recently, just before I left, we hired a full-time person who just worked with the men to connect them with employers. So it's one thing to get out of prison and say, you know, I'm ready to work. Who needs work? It's another to have somebody ready for you and understands your restrictions. You got to see your parole officer every Wednesday, or you don't have a car. You're not allowed to travel to this county because you beat up your wife, whatever, right? There's all kinds of situations. So these are the different training programs that are provided in that case. I think that might be it. No. Okay, so there's a few numbers. The last one is the recidivism rate, which is the rate of return. Most states measure it after 3 years. After 3 years, how many people that were released came back to prison? National average is close to 50%. I was about 37, I think. And then this program, you know, was around 7. It's just, you know, it started in 2020, so you're just getting 3 years data. Excuse me, so it's hard to say where it'll end up, but it's clearly effective. And you know, there's a lot of anecdotes about this person or that person who's ended up going into construction or started their own drywalling business or this or that. But really, you need to measure data, and they're doing it. I think that's it. Okay, so
Very cool.
thank you very much.
I'd ask somebody, are you or is anyone trying to reduplicate this other place?
Yeah.
I mean, they're talking about housing crisis locally.
Right.
A lot of states have come to both South Dakota and Iowa to say, oh, what are you doing? It takes a lot of effort. It takes a ton of money to pour into it. So just that trailer I showed you was 360,000. So we got 2 of them. So no other states are doing it other than South Dakota and Iowa right now, but I hope others will.
That's sort of a kind of a response.
It's difficult, you know.
No, right.
Prisons, I left out a couple stories. One was during COVID. Excuse me. During COVID, you remember how the panic was for hand sanitizer, masks and gowns. So we made hundreds of thousands of those. But one of the things we did was we made hand sanitizer from ethanol. So Iowa's got a lot of ethanol plants, which is pure alcohol. So I am a licensed drug manufacturer and also a licensed alcohol distributor. We're hauling those around. But anyway, so that was 2020. But 1 year later, 2021 in March, one of my guys and a maintenance guy beat to death 2 people with hammers. They killed them, trying to escape. So that's why I say prison is complicated. And to have people using tools and nail guns and saws and hammers is always right on the edge.
Yeah.
And so it's a difficult world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for that presentation, and it's really interesting. I can't wait to talk to my son.
Yes,
about the
so
house.
I've met with her son. He's sheriff of, or is he sheriff
Chief
or
of police.
chief of police in Mount Pleasant, which is
How many?
where a prison is, and I met with
many
him a couple times when we were setting up programs. We have a lot of programs in Iowa, they have a lot of programs where people go out to work, kind of like a work release. They're in state prison, but they go out and then they come back. So whenever we do that, we meet with local law enforcement, make sure they're cool with it.
You
So-
didn't say how you ended up in Vermont. though.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, thank you. I know we're out of time here, but, so retired. And, all my kids, none of my kids stayed in Iowa, so I have one here in Williston with 3 kids. And then I have one in Boston and one in New York. So my daughter here says, oh, they're building, in Northridge Development. So we're like, what the heck? We knew we were coming back east. And rather than just throw dart at Albany or, Springfield, we decided to come here. So I'm a total carpetbagger, unlike Andy,
Where do you get instructors in trades like plumbing and electrical?
So we use the local community college, plus we hired staff. So the staff that worked in the program are both security, but also licensed electrician or plumber. We have a master electrician, a master plumber, and then they have to learn, about tool control and other things like that.
Were there any women in the program?
No, and that was something, so women prison is completely separate, different location. And we never really found a way. They have other programs there and they work for other companies. They do a lot of wiring harnesses and other products, but never got them involved in construction, which construction companies would like. They want to diversify.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the things that I find amazing when we're doing these talks is that there are so many connections that you have no clue on earth anybody has. My first job was at Pratt and Whitney.
Oh, no kidding.
And Pratt and Whitney in Connecticut was a huge
Was that
company.
huge? Yeah.
So my father-in-law worked there, my husband worked there, my sister-in-law worked there. My kids said to my father-in-law and my father worked for the government, overseeing the various projects. And my kids said, well, you go to nursery school and you go to elementary and high school. And do you go to Pratt and Whitney before or after college? Because everybody went there.
Right.
But what you've done, I always keep thinking all the people that do the computer stuff that illegally are doing it. I keep thinking, they end up in prison. Why don't we utilize their brain in a positive way? What you're doing is incredible. It's sad that it isn't happening everywhere.
It's difficult though.
I'm sure it is.
Computers,
Yeah.
guys and women would find ways to break out and send messages to the victim.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's always there's a yin and yang between security and trying to do things to help people.
But
It's difficult.
congratulations.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both.